All right, let's get to our top quarterback battles in NCAA. Not the game, but the next one's coming out in 2023. And I, for one, am super duper excited. But
you'll go 5-1?
Let's go 5-1. The five most, and I want to clarify this, the five most interesting quarterback battles because, and the way we ranked it was how good we think the teams are going to be and obviously how big of an impact it's going to have on not only that team, but college football. Cone, let's start at 5.
Number 5, start with the Auburn Tigers.
Look, it's going to come down to Calzada and TJ Finley, but how different really are they? I think Calzada's going to win the job. I do. Do worry about his changeup a little bit. I feel like he's kind of the guy that throws the slant 100 miles an hour, like for no reason. But how different are they? They're both kind of statues. They can't run. They've got big arms, but you're not. How much more are you getting out of Zach Calzada than you are to TJ Finley? And how good is Auburn going to be? Even though I will say Camden Brown at wide receiver, that's what they look like. Chick Dawson, guy I've been screaming about for 2 years. Wait till you see Tarvarish Dawson on the field. He's an NFL player. And they got some other guys through the transfer portal going to be interesting to see. But I mean, Blaine, from an Auburn standpoint, while it's an interesting battle, and TJ Finley, I mean, I say that, he eluded the police pretty well, but on the moped. But I mean, how different are Calzada and Finley?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, this team's going to be a 2-quarterback system.
Oh,
that's what it's going to be. I hate to say it.
7-5. It's 7-5.
Yeah, it is.
It just smells like 7-5.
What do you mean? Like
both of them are going
to one drive.
It's going to end up. They're going to name a starter, obviously. It's going to maybe get through 3 or 4 games. You know, he's going to start underperforming, and then we're going to have the mix. This guy in on this drive, this guy in on this drive, this guy in on this drive. It's going to happen. I can already see.
Well, it's like I said. Auburn will start out 5-0. They'll start out 5-0. First 5 games at home. They'll beat Penn State week 3. LSU will come to town week 5. Somehow Auburn will miraculously win that one. Like Batman will show up. Something crazy will happen. Some bird will run into a ball at the end. The guy's wide open for LSU to win it. Just a bird. Maybe it's the eagle. I don't know. Hits the ball. But then you go to Georgia. Boring. Then you go to Ole Miss. You got to go to Mississippi State. You get Arkansas at home, which I do think they'll win because, again, Jordan Hare's built on an Indian burial ground.
Weirdly, Auburn always plays good against Arkansas. I don't know why.
Well, unless it's at 11 in the morning on Jefferson Pilot, Fred Talley is still running for touchdowns in my mind. But that's number 5 for me, so yeah.
Okay. Yes or no? Does Zach Calzada start every game for Auburn this season?
No.
Okay. All right. Next one. Number 4, Ole Miss.
Very interesting. I'm hearing a lot of good things about Luke Altmaier. And if you remember, when Corral got banged up last year, Altmaier came in against Auburn, looked good. You remember in the bowl game. This dude can do it. Now, you brought in Jackson Dart, and I get it. Jackson Dart, I do think deep down, Dart is going to win the job but because he's more mobile. But I tell you what, Luke Altmaier has a chance. Luke Altmaier and Garrett Nussmeier from LSU are 2 very, 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 very interesting quarterbacks to me. I would not be surprised if Luke Altmaier didn't play and Jackson Dart had a big year, if Luke Altmaier transfers somewhere and ends up being a really good player. Because I watched that kid last year, was not afraid of the moment at all coming in Jordan Hare. I like it's a good battle, but I do think Jackson Dart wins it.
Okay. How about you?
Mobility plays a big part in, I think, Kiffin's offense.
Okay. Man, these former USC quarterbacks are all over the country.
I know.
It's
JT
nuts.
Daniels.
It's nuts.
Slovis. All right, number 3, LSU. Interesting quarterback battle.
Very interesting. I think this one has big repercussions. And this one's interesting because while Altmaier and Jackson Dart are different in the way they can move, the difference between Miles Brennan and Jaden Daniels, and I know people are saying Garrett Nussmeier's in it and stuff like that, but I think it's going to come down to Daniels or Brennan. Daniels took all the first-team reps, I believe, in practice the other day. It's looking like Jaden Daniels. You know, it's like Justin Timberlake. It's like, it's gonna be me. Like, it really
sounds just a lot.
I know, right? Well, we are in Nashville. Anyways, when I look at Jaden Daniels, it's so intriguing to me because he's such a different player than Miles Brennan. And I will go back to what I said the other day, and I know y'all disagreed. The best player is going to play. Well, the best player can be the mobile quarterback. That's a real thing. Yeah. Miles Brennan, when he's been healthy and been in there, has been really good, but something always happens, and I feel like you are so much more dangerous with Jaden Daniels, with guys like Boutte, Besh, the guys they have on the outside who can extend the play, those broken plays where maybe their protection's not great. LSU in the offensive line is going to be interesting. Being able to extend that play and make big plays down the field is something I think that's very enticing about him. But I do worry that Jaden Daniels puts the ball in harm's way a lot.
I mean, I agree with you. This one's very intriguing to me because these guys are so different, and this is a first-year head coach there with LSU, Brian Kelly. It would be higher. It would be number 1 on my list, to be honest with you, if both of these quarterbacks were better. but we don't know exactly what we're going to get here. I mean, we're hearing some words out of camp, and Matt Moscona was breaking this down for us.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Jane Daniels. I think he's going to be the guy. And, Brennan, like I said, he's been at LSU since the school started. But, again, it just is what it is.
I think it's Daniels at the beginning. He makes too many mistakes, and Miles Brennan ends up being the quarterback at LSU.
I bet they play FSU, and Jaden Daniels balls. I bet he balls, and everybody freaks out. And then as the season goes, we'll see. And look, a good LSU is good for college football. A good LSU is good for the SEC. But I've got to see it before I believe it.
All right, number 2, Texas A&M. Max Johnson transfer from LSU over to Texas A&M, and they already have Haynes King.
We went back and forth on this. Should this be number 1? We're going to get to number 1 in a second. I think both have good arguments. I just still feel, and I love to see our boy Damian Craig working with the quarterbacks. I know he's a lot more comfortable with that. I still feel, and I think you agree with me, Max Johnson has so much potential and can run that system. Not that Haynes King can't, but I just feel like everybody gets enamored with, Haynes King runs 4.4 and this, that, and the other. Well, that's great. Max Johnson's fast enough to be a problem on the scramble. He's smart enough to be able to work inside the pocket, and he has all the intangibles. And this obviously has huge repercussions for what happens in the SEC West, for what A&M wants to do. This battle is fascinating to me. I just think Max Johnson's going to be the guy. Will he be the guy game 1? I don't know, but if it is Haynes King, I feel like he's going to struggle. May struggle a little against Miami, who's got a hell of a quarterback in their own in Tyler Van Dyke. But Max Johnson eventually is going to be that guy, and A&M fans are going to fall in love with him.
This is tough. This is tough for me because you really have, what do we know about Haynes King? What do we know? We know what Max is. Yeah. So, I mean, it'd be easier to gravitate to what Max does. I mean, Max is an extremely good quarterback, but I've been hearing so much hype about this Haynes King kid for the last 2 years, so much hype. So if he's really about it, if he can really run a 4.4, and he can actually be a somewhat above average.
He can really run a 4.4.
Above average thrower, then I don't see why Haynes King wouldn't be the starter for Texas A&M.
It's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. Y'all know how I feel about Max Johnson.
Yeah,
and it's going to have big implications in the West.
I don't think Max Johnson would have went to A&M if he really believed that Haynes King was all about it. I don't know if A&M would have taken him in if they really believed that Haynes King was all about it the way they've recruited. They've got Wegner. They've got other guys that you can get ready. They brought him in for a reason.
I agree with that. Okay, so number 1 on the list, I have Michigan as the most interesting quarterback battle this season because both quarterbacks are so good. You know what you're going to get from Cade McNamara, and the ceiling is high for J.J. McCarthy. And also because Michigan is going to be so lethal on offense. They really are. You get Ronnie Bell back from injury. Blake Corum returns. And this Donovan Edwards kid, I'm telling you right now, is like a Debo Samuel. He can play in the slot. He can play at running back. Michigan is going to be lethal on offense. What they do on defense, I'm not quite sure yet. But it's going to be this battle. Cade McNamara had one of the most efficient seasons I've seen from a Michigan quarterback since Chad Henne played there. But you know what the ceiling is, and you know what the floor is, so it's comfortable. You don't really know what the ceiling is on J.J. McCarthy. Sounds like it's through the roof.
Yeah, well, I want to say this, and I'll start with the Georgia game. Last year, the play calling had a lot to do with how that Georgia game went down. Cade McNamara wasn't in great positions the whole time, or wasn't really giving it up. They gave him Michigan called vanilla ice cream. They played it safe on offense, so it's hard for me to blame Cade McNamara. But it's also hard for me to think. I know J.J. McCarthy, first off, the backup quarterback's always the most popular guy on the team. That's how it works, especially when you're a phenom like J.J. McCarthy is. But I have a hard time in my heart of hearts believing that Michigan would replace the guy that finally got them over the hump against Ohio State, that got them into the playoff and was unbelievably efficient, especially with a guy like Harbaugh, who is a quarterback, who is a quarterback's coach, that understands that McNamara understands. Now, McCarthy last year, they bring him in packages and stuff like that. I think you'll see that again. And unless McNamara struggles early, I don't think there's any way McCarthy gets named the starter. Because again, what are you telling that locker room? Like, because they know that they rode with Cade last year. This was the leader we had, and he took us here. And when you got there, the play calling was not up to snuff. It just wasn't.
So do you think that J.J. McCarthy will just be a package quarterback this season? And if that's the case, what happens going into next season?
Well, again, I think it depends on how Michigan does. If Michigan has another big year and makes the playoff, I mean, again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, I think you'll see McCarthy either leave if he knows he's not going to be the starter for the next year, or I don't think he's going to change positions. But I just don't see a world in which you replace the guy that you trust, that understands the offense, that won big games. I know it wasn't always pretty, but he was unbelievably efficient and got you basically to the promised land. I just don't see them doing that.
Yeah, and they could have had John Elway on that team and they weren't beating Georgia.
That's exactly, especially if you called those plays.
I agree with that, but, I mean, the best player is going to play at the end of the day. if you're the best player, the overall best player at that position, you're going to play. And even if the guy before that took you to the playoffs, won big games, that's great. And if you're a true leader, you're going to understand when someone's better than you at that position, you're still going to support that guy and you're still going to support that team, regardless if you're really a true leader. So I don't really know enough about McCarthy, his passing abilities. He did just come in on packages last year to run the ball, really. But I feel like his ceiling's a lot higher.
He can sling it now.
He can sling it. So his ceiling's a lot higher. But if you want to go with the pick that you know what you're going to get out of it, then yeah, I understand. But
it's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have.
It is a good problem to have. It's an interesting situation. That's why you build depth. Iron sharpens iron. I'll use every cliche back in the book. All right, hey, if you like what you heard, go ahead and ring that bell. Turn those notifications on. We're bringing it every day, daily from 2 to 3 Central, and we want you here. I can hear it ringing now.